I'm going to tear down and review this piece of test gear, which is a brand new Siglent SSG3021X RF signal generator. So if you want to see how that goes, stick around. Okay, so here's another review. This is also courtesy of Rob from Teardown Technologies. Here's his card, so if you're in New Zealand, give him a call if you're interested in one of these things. This is an SSG3021X RF signal generator. Now this particular one goes from 9 kHz to 2.1 GHz. There's also a 3.2 GHz version, which would be the SSG3032X version, because it's 3.2. Now these also have IQ modulation. Now, it's actually an option. Well, it's a different model. It's kind of, they say option, but it's actually a different model. Now the IQ ones are actually, like in this case it would be 3021XIQ, because it's actually got different hardware in the back which needs to go in there. So it's actually, you have to buy it with the IQ ability. IQ is mentioned on this unit. It's got it on the front panel over here. It's also mentioned in the menus, but it's disabled because it's actually not a function this thing can have. I think it's just like, they should really probably remove that button really if it doesn't have it. I don't believe there's a way of adding it, not that I'm aware of anyway. Maybe it is a way of adding it later on, I don't know. I'm not aware of anything, no. My research hasn't thrown anything up for that. So this does AM, FM, phase modulation and pulse modulation. Let's see, it's 5-inch touchscreen as well, so it's actually a touchscreen on there. So you can use it touchscreen or this, or a combination of both, whatever you want to do. Maybe you find it easiest at the time. It covers minus 110 dBm through to 13 dBm, but with 20 dBm maximum. So I guess it depends on your modulation type you're using at the time for the overhead it needs to have to produce the modulation. Below 100 kHz, I did find it went down to 9 dBm as a maximum. So I don't know, I haven't really looked into that too deeply because that's quite a low frequency anyway, so I wasn't really too worried about it in this case. So the IQ modulation, that's an optional unit. I don't believe this can have it added. It's not an option listed on the menus anyway, but it does appear as a feature, but it's not actually available. It's got a 10 MHz input and output on the back, LAN and web server options, external modulation input, stuff like that. I'll cover that when I show you the back of the unit in a minute. It does 0.01 Hz frequency resolution and 0.01 dB amplitude resolution. This particular unit also has a, I believe anyway, I'm pretty sure I got this correct, there's an option in the menu there which is listed as 2.1 RB, well sorry, 21 RB32, which I believe is an upgrade to the 3.2 GHz version. I think the hardware is the same, the difference is purely a software restriction. So I'm pretty sure you can actually upgrade this to 3.2 GHz with a software upgrade. It's got sweep functions and stuff like that as well on the RF output and the low frequency output. This is like an audio level that goes up to 1 MHz. So it's actually got two generators built in basically. So it's one can up to 1 MHz and one is all the RF stuff. That's up to 3 volts maximum. There's also a USB power sensor option, which means you can do external sensing. It's all in the menu system as well. You can calibrate it, so you've got calibrated output, stuff like that. That uses a USB input which you plug into the back. The sensors apparently which are compatible with that is a Keysight U2000A and a Rohde & Schwarz NRP6A. So those are the sensors this is compatible with for the RF sensing. It's got an ALC built in as well, which so means it automatically controls the levels on the RF output. You can do some adjustments to that to disable it, or to do a sample and hold instead. So I'll grab a sample and then I'll hold that level. So I'm not quite sure why you'd use those features, but some people probably do. Also the IQ modulation, the version of this which has IQ modulation, this one doesn't have it, that also requires a second signal generator which can produce IQ signals. An example of that is the SSG3032X series. That's what's mentioned at least. Maybe there might be some other generators that can do it as well. If it can produce IQ modulation, then you should be able to use it with the IQ model of this. And another option is pulse train generator as well, because it's got two options in the software here in the optional upgrades. So one's that I believe 3.2 GHz upgrade, and one's marked as PT, which I believe is a pulse train generator as well, because it can do pulse modulation. Okay, so that's enough of the specs, my notes. So as you can see from the front panel here, these indicators that light up as well, like these ones light up, power button lights up, things like that. So a few like that will show you when they're working. Pulse, the power button will pulse. It's got that heartbeat thing that the Siglent ones do. I don't currently have power applied to it. Okay, so you can see you've got preset, utility and home. It's like a main base page, I suppose. It says, you know, home. Frequency level, sweep, low frequency and modulation adjustments, so it's like shortcut keys. Also you've got a keypad here to enter in numbers directly. You've got unit entries here, so gigahertz, nano, dB, microvolts, mega, micro, microvolts, kilo, millivolts, x1 dBm, some other cursor buttons and stuff there for doing inputs. So obviously a delete key. Arrow keys, you've got a rotary encoder here, which is pushable as well. IQ modulation button, which I didn't say. In this case, I don't even know why it has it, because it doesn't have the ability to do IQ modulation. Bit weird. I think Siglent, if they've got a model which definitely isn't going to support IQ, then they should actually not have the button on it either. I don't know, maybe they're planning on, maybe they're keeping it open to upgrade to add IQ modulation. I don't know. I should actually ask Rob if I can open this thing up and have a look inside. If I can, I'll do a teardown as well. Escape and close, so X6 menus and stuff you're in the main control here. Trigger, so you can do manual triggering as well, so it can be like a pulsed output. Modulation on off and RF on off. Controls and indicators. Okay, so it's all pretty self-explanatory really in that way. It's a fairly easy thing to use. Okay, so we've got the back end here. So a trigger in and out, so I can output a trigger as well. Valid signal, it changes states depending on if the RF signal is stabilised and correct as per the setting. Maybe it allows for sweeps and stuff like that. I think it's for that sort of thing, or you're doing stepped frequencies. It's indicator say it's ready to work as it's transitioning or something maybe. Pulse in and out, 10 MHz output, which will either use the, well, I believe it will use the internal reference. I think it may also pass through the 10 MHz input as well. I'm not sure, I haven't tested it out. It might pass through the 10 MHz. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I don't know what it does. So 10 MHz input, auto switching. So if it senses it's got a input on this channel here, then it will actually switch over to the external source instead of using this internal reference. External modulation input as well. So that's using for low frequency generator and stuff like that. USB device. Now this is when you are connecting this as a slave to a computer basically. You can then control it to a computer control either using the USB or the LAN. You can use either one apparently, it depends on what software you're using. If you're using the LAN you can use the web interface, USB requires you to use software instead. Also you've got a USB port on the back here as well, standard thing for like memory, save memories, that sort of stuff to an external flash drive. Earthing post and voltages, 100 volts to 240 or 120, depending on which country you're in. It's like a universal. Oh, there is a seal on the casing, unfortunately, so I'll have to ask Rob about if I'm allowed to open this thing up or not. I'd like to have a look actually, see if it's possible to add the IQ option later on. Just out of curiosity. Okay, so it's powered the thing up. I've already got the SVA, which I'm going to be using it to do testing with. I've got that hooked up already and already powered up. You can hear the volume of that fan. Maybe it's fairly quiet. The fan on this is significantly louder, but still manageable. I'm going to be doing a review on the SVA as well, which you probably can't quite see in shot right now, but yeah, I'll take the back of it. Alright, I'm going to be reviewing the SVA 1015X as well, so watch out for that in a future video too. But in the meantime, I'm looking at this one. Okay, so I'm just going to use the SVA to show you what this is doing as I'm doing various tests. Okay. So first things first, we'll power it up and see how quickly it boots up. Now something I have noticed, if you've this will actually output a frequency sometimes before the screen's up. There we go, frequency's output and the screen's not up yet. You probably can't see that actually. There you go, frequency's there. Maybe I'll zoom this up a bit actually. I might just change my camera angle very slightly so you can see slightly better. Alright, what's that, 25 seconds? Lastly, I'm not reviewing this part right now, I'm reviewing this piece. So this is the piece you want to focus on, this is just for you to see what's going on. Okay, so we'll start the menu. You've got preset, which I think is going to go to 2.1 gig. Yeah, it is, which is off the setup I've got on here right now, but that's okay. And so it's got a preset, so you can save the preset as well, I think, to tell it to, you know, you can do what you want. I want to go to 10 MHz, there, alright, back to 10 MHz. And output level, I want to be 0 dBm. Output on. so it's pretty easy to use. So utility, go in here first, all these left menus, then we'll go across the unit. So here we've got settings, so it's touchscreen as well. English language, so you've got language options, English, Chinese, looks like it's got two options there. Preset type, default or user, so you can set your own preset off that button. So default obviously just sets it to its factory default. Beep on and off, so you can confirm key presses, you can turn it off if you get noise you. Power online, so I believe that's when it gets a power applied to the unit, it will turn itself on. Power on settings, which would be last used settings or factory default, or whatever the default is. Set to default, maybe I should do that. Ah, okay, no, it's just done that. I haven't tried that before, so yeah, that's wrong. Screensaver on and off, you can various time frames, it's up to you if you use it or not. And obviously a time setting. Now you've also got shortcuts along the bottom here as well. So home, which is that one there anyway, and shortcut, which I would have thought they actually have a button for, but they don't actually have one. It's only in the menu here. So home is like the overall display of what's going on. IQ modulation, which I'd say this unit doesn't actually have, or have the capability to do it, that I know of. Low frequency, which is obviously the audio, whatever, because it's got two generators inside it. It's got, generally that'd be an audio modulator, you know, for the audio AM or FM modulation, or whatever kind of modulation you're doing, you'd set that up. Home, that's what I was looking at home. So that's the frequency stuff, which is the low frequency button there. It does the same thing. Right. Modulation itself, so this is actual AM modulation aspect as well. So there's low frequency outputs on there, but it can mix it in, all sorts of stuff like that. So you can turn it on and off. AM, FM, phase modulation and pulse modulation, and you can do different wave types as well, depths, frequencies, modulation source, internal, external, or both, mixture. Right. FM, so it does deviation, same kind of deal there as well, mixes them together. Phase modulation does radians, and it's all pretty much the same stuff. And pulses is a little bit different again, because it's got pulse periods and pulse widths, polarities and that sort of stuff, and sources as well. So it does have external source on the back. So I'll try and keep back to the same menu each time, back to the home menu. Right, so then we've got shortcut over here, which is what I showed just then. So if you're doing that little arrow button, so go to there, you've got the arrow button there, it goes back to that shortcut menu. Right, so we've got, I should zoom in more on this, hold on. Not worry about this part so much now. So frequency is obviously that main display there, same as that button there, it's the same page. Okay, I'll put it back to 10 MHz again. And then we've got level, sweep and sensor. Now if you go to that frequency one again, you see it across the bottom as well, exactly the same options as is this one here, right? But it tends to jump to the actual setting you need, like in this case if you put level, it will jump to that one, do freq, it will jump to that one. It's slightly better with the buttons. So level is obviously adjustable in dB. You can type it in there. You can actually punch into the keypad as well, and you can also dial in and out too. Do that. If you click that button there, you can actually dial it instead. So if you're trying to step through, say 100, well, minus 110 dB is the lowest it will go. For me, if I'm doing radio work, I'm doing like CBs and stuff, I need to go down to minus 127 dBm. So minus 110 isn't actually low enough for what I need. So in my case, I'll actually have to put in a 20 dB attenuator in order to get this range down low enough to what I need to do the kind of work that I do. And that may or may not be an option or an issue for some people. Just something to be aware of, that minus 110 is as low as it will go. So sweep, you can do frequency sweeps. You've got different options there as well. You can do it basically based on a range and level. You can do sweeps and ranges and levels. So you can have one fixed frequency and sweep the levels, or we could do a fixed level, sweep the frequencies, or a combination of both. Or you've got a list sweep, which means you can put in settings of what you want to do. So you put in, you know, what frequency you want it to step to. So if just hey, do 1 GHz for example there instead at a different level, let's do, I don't know, 1 microvolt, So that will step between those two after those periods there. So you can change those periods too. Just say turn the sweep on and off, is that thing there. You can choose which one you're going to do, frequency level, frequency and level. Sensor is a external power sensor. Now, as I mentioned on the intro there, this is compatible with a USB power sensor, which is the Keysight U2000A and the Rohde & Schwarz NRP6A. So those are the two options you've got for that sensor, and this is how you configure it all inside here in order to do calibration stuff like that on it. So you can measure the actual output. Back again. So then you've got the next one, which is modulation, which is also from this button here, same set of options. So you've got the AM, FM, phase modulation and pulses I showed you just now. Alright. Back again. Then you've got the low frequency source. And this is this output here, which is basically the second generator. So you can do all kinds of things with this as well. You can turn it on and off, adjust the levels up to 3 volts. I think it's got a 1 millivolt resolution, or something like minimum settings 1 millivolt, I think it was. You could do offsets, and you've got different wave shapes as well: sine, square, sawtooth, triangle, and DC. And you can adjust the frequency up to 1 megahertz. If I'd say put in 5, it'll only go up to 1 megahertz. Right, that's the most it will do, is 1 megahertz. And I think I can't remember what I think it was 0.01, was it? Yeah, 0.01 hertz I think is the lowest it can go down to. Yeah, so 0.01 hertz, so that's quite a range of on that second generator there. So touchscreen's quite nice. I mean, you could do it on here too, but yeah, touchscreen's just a bit easier sometimes. You also got the phrase as well and stuff like that. So, and you also got the sweep option. We'll do the same stuff as you do on your OS side, but with the low frequency output, you can sweep that as well. You can set start frequencies and do 100 hertz, for example, up to 550 hertz, and this goes by, sorry, it's a center point, up to 1 kilohertz. So you can set a center as well and a span. So it's a bit like how you'd set this thing up, really. You can set a span, a center frequency, and stuff like that. And sweep time's adjustable as well, down to nanoseconds. So that's that part. Then you've got the IQ thing. Now, this is the interesting thing about this. It's in the menu. There's a button for it. It's here, but it's greyed out, unavailable, right? You can't turn it on. So I kind of wonder if this is designed to maybe have it upgradable later on by adding the hardware. I mean, it just seems like it's crying out for that option, It's in the menu system, there's a button for it. The only thing it's missing is the 2 connections on the back that I can see. I don't know what hardware is required for that to work, and this to be enabled. It's just like it's asking for a plug-in module to be shoved in there, I don't know. I've asked Rob if I can pull it apart. I've sent him an email, so we'll see if I can actually get that done or not. If I can open it up, it'd be good. See what's in there. Okay, and that's shortcut menu all covered now. So it's actually fairly straightforward. Now, back to the utility system, which we didn't cover completely. So system information, so it gives you all information about the unit, what software version it's running, the actual model number, how many times it's been started up. This is started up 12 times. Now I've started it up probably about half a dozen times, so it's basically new. Right. Interface. So this is how you can set up the LAN interface and the web server stuff. So you set up the IP addresses, the gateway addresses, subnet mask, that sort of stuff. THCP, you can turn it on and off. It tells you what its MAC address is if you need to restrict by MAC address on your network, for example. The web settings, so this is the web server. You can turn it on and off and set a password for it. Self-test, allows you to test various aspects such as the LCD, the keypad, LEDs, the actual internal circuitry boards, and the screen itself, the actual touch screen. Shut down, I laughed when I saw this the first time. Swipe the power off. Doesn't it look like an Apple phone? Just that, it's just so similar. I don't know, anyway, I actually laughed when I saw that. Not really necessary. I don't even know why they've really got that in there, because you've got the power button right here. So, I don't know, maybe it's for remote shutdown, because then you can remotely access that menu and turn it off remotely, whereas you probably can't do that with the power button. And maybe it's an extra if you've got remote networking and you're using it that way. Presets, which is obviously just preset the thing back to the original settings again. Updates is obviously firmware, so you can do a local search on the internal memory or the plug-in flash drive. to upload the firmware. Options, now this is where I said about the interesting options here. Now, I did some more reading since I did that first intro, and yes, I've confirmed the 2.1 BW, or 21 BW32 is a 3.2 GHz software upgrade. So you can do a software update to this to make it 3.2 GHz. And PT is that pulse train generator, as I said. So, and this is where you choose which option you install, and that's where you put the license key in. Help menu, so you can actually go through and look at various help systems, tell you how to use things. I haven't actually looked at this. I've just been poking around and figuring out, and just that's how I like to learn things, is just look at them and explore them. So it's got a help system in here, so it tells you how to set various things up. You know, in a descriptive text way. You know, nice little swipe screen there. All good. And contact details if you need to contact them, but it's not really necessary anyway, I think. Yeah. And store and recall, so you can save settings and recall settings and maybe screenshots, stuff like that too. It probably does that, I imagine. Okay, so that's that part. If I go into one of his menus, so go in that one for example, we've also got this escape and close button over here. You can push that and it'll close the menu out as well. Close that on the screen as well, because it's top level, but go home. So it's the IQ, which is that same screen we saw before. Triggering, I don't know how useful that's going to be. Usually with your signal generator you're just doing a constant output. Maybe that's for pulsing modulation. I haven't actually explored that aspect of it. So anyway, let's chuck another focus. Let's get this thing running again. Gigahertz. And I want level 0 dBm, modulation AM on, and I want 1 kHz. Yeah, that's fine, that'll do. Okay, turn the output on. So there's the waveform up there. Try some modulation on it. So it's jumping around a bit now. Let's reduce the span on this thing. Span. Let's go 20 kHz. And markers. So it's working fine, you know, it's there, it's basically bang on frequency and everything you expect it to be. I don't have these frequency lots, I don't have them both running off a 10 MHz source. The VNA has a 10 MHz input, as does this, and this has an output, as does the VNA, so you could actually link them together and share the same time base to make sure they're both exactly in sync with each other. But as you see, I haven't bothered doing that, so I turn modulation off and it cleans that back up again. So it's all very easy to use. I mean, I didn't read the manual until I got the bits which I didn't know about, such as the IQ modulation, the pulse and the phase modulation, those kinds of things, and the sweep functions. I kind of figured those out. But the IQ thing is the interesting part. That's the bit I'm really sort of puzzled about right now, is what that's doing. Okay, so if you want to change the frequency, you could tap on that, punch it in there, or just go back out of there. You can click on that and dial it up. You can also use these to change cursor positions as well, and I think you can probably do that too. Yeah, you can. So you can use those arrows. So you've got multiple ways of actually changing the values. Now let's do FM modulation instead. Let's turn the AM off. FM, turn the modulation on there. FM deviation 100 kHz, that's quite a lot. Turn it on. Let's change the span on this thing, and let's go 50 MHz, shall we? 50 kHz, sorry. There you go, so you've got the modulation span on there as well. If I change that to, say, 50 kHz, changes on here. I do say 5 kHz, does change a little bit as well. So it's all doing what you expect it to do, you know, it's FM rate. There we go, that's a bit better. 1 kHz modulation then. Makes a bit more sense. There you go. So now we've got phase modulation as well, which I've turned off the FM, put on the phase modulation. This is something I'm not actually that familiar with myself. I don't know much at all about it. I know it exists. I had a bit of a play around, just poking around stuff here. So it's got a square. So look at that spectrum we're doing using a square wave. That's pretty intense. You can see probably there's a phase thing there actually. Let's go bandwidth, shall we? See if we can make this a bit better. Manual bandwidth. Let's drop the span down. There we go. Lots of little spikes in there. Might have to reduce the span, make it a bit quicker. Anyway, I've got no idea what I'm doing with phase modulation. It's just I know it exists, and that's pretty much it really. You can see the actual effect on the spectrum there. If I turn it back off again, you should get a nice waveform instead. There you go, nice little spike right there. Let's go 5 kHz. Keep forgetting this is a touchscreen as well. And the same thing with pulse modulation. I've got basically no idea what I'm doing here, so I'll turn it on, and this is the spectrum we get from that with my setting currently anyway. Just the pulse widths. And it changes the actual spectrum result in the end. Anyway, that's what it looks like on a spectrum analyzer. Kind of. I've only got a very narrow bandwidth on here right now though. I've got 5 kHz band, that's right. 50 kHz. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with that stuff. I think I've kind of covered everything, haven't I? So you've got modulation on, off, and stuff there. So if I go turn AM modulation back on again, and bring the span back up so you can see it. Change the bandwidth and stuff as well, and make it a bit quicker again. There you go, 100 Hz. You can say you can turn the modulation on and off with that button there, or you can turn the RF on and off. So it's a fairly simple instrument. I mean, there's not a huge amount to it, but if you need an RF signal generator, you need an RF signal generator, and this has got lots of useful things on it. But you know, they're basically generally fairly simple things. Now, the IQ modulation, say the interesting part about this is what's going on there. As I've said before, I've said it many times. You probably hear me, sick of hearing me saying it. So I think I've covered everything in there. I haven't missed anything, have I? I think I've covered everything. So I'll probably show the web interface next. I'd like one of these, but then I've already got 3. I've got 3 signal generators already. Might be 4, I'm not quite sure, I'm losing count. Okay, so I've now hooked up to my, well, my on-loan SSG3032XE scope, which is also a review item. I've already published this review. If you haven't seen this yet, make sure you go back and check my recent videos. It will be there. I've done a quite extensive review on this thing. 350 MHz scope. Nice piece of kit. So I've now got this hooked up to the low frequency output on here, as you can see. And it's just going straight to channel 1, which is a 1-to-1 probe, obviously, and I've got it set at 50 ohms input impedance, and that is correlating with this. This is a 50 ohms output, because 3 volt peak to peak on here becomes 3 volts peak to peak on the scope with a 50 ohm input on here. If I leave it as 1 mega ohm, I'm getting about 6 volts. So obviously it's designed to be 50 ohm matched. If I go in here, I can change this level to, you know, whatever I want. I'm not quite sure what the last level is. 0.001. Let's try that. See, it will go down to 1 millivolt peak to peak. Is the last it will do on there. See if we can see it here. Right, so obviously I'm getting a bit of noise in there because I've got quite a noisy environment here. I've got a lot of electrical noise in this area, so trying to do low level signals can be a bit tricky. Right, so this is lowest level, 500 microvolts per division is what this can do, and this is seeing that signal there. Also I'm doing a 1 kHz signal right now, so I'll put this back up a bit and just give it the noise. Let's do yes, let's do 1 volt. Here we go, and yeah, 1 volt. That's what you can do with that. So it's basically got 2 generators built in, so if you want to have the RF generator running as well, it's independent. You know, you don't have to have any RF outputs or any modulation running in order to use the low frequency side. Frequency, I believe 1 megahertz was the most I could do, I think. Yeah, so 1 megahertz, here we go. Alright. Oh, that's level and horizontal. Use that right around, Scott. Come on. So I'm still getting 1 volt. So it's reading 1.01 volts at 1 megahertz there. If we go down to, say, 1 hertz, where's hertz? Times 1. There you go, 1 hertz. Bring this time base right down so we can get it. I think it's on roll mode now. Is it? No, it's just slow acquisition. So here we go. Bring down one more. It's reading 1.02 volts, so obviously it's pretty flat across that range as well. It's looking alright. Now we can also wind that frequency up and just look at what happens. It just increases time base, it's not so slow to acquire. Let's just change that one there, make it a bit quicker. Now it's basically being flat right across the whole range, as you would expect really. It's watching at level and it's just basically staying the same all the way down. So yeah, that's it, max. So it's got offsets as well. That's the other thing I can do actually, I forgot to mention that in the other part. On the RF section and on the off section you actually set an offset, and same for the frequency, so you can actually use that as injected as in a mixer. You can do that. So let's just change sources on here. I can do this. Just leave it hooked up to the scope, be fine. So there's the I signal there. With no modulation on. Turn the modulation on, probably won't matter anyway. But turn the low frequency off. You can see it's independent. Now you have got this offset, frequency offset, phase offset here as well. So frequency is currently reading exactly 10 MHz. So if I do, say 1 MHz offset, reading 11 MHz here now, okay? So that if we now do 10 MHz on here, you'll get 9. So if you're injecting into a mixer, for example, you know what frequencies you should be doing and troubleshooting something, and you're trying to do substitutions inside a mixer, you could then calculate, if you know what your local oscillator frequency is, you can put that in here as the offset and mix it in and give you a direct frequency you want, and it will output the mix frequency, so you know a bit easier how to calculate things. It can be very handy if you're doing that sort of work. The low frequency's got the same thing, it's got the offsets as well. Level offsets. Should we chuck phase modulation into this display and see what happens? What do you reckon? Phase modulation. Turn it on. I don't know, I never played with phase modulation, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to get. Not looking like much actually. I don't know what I'm looking for here. Modulation back on. So that's what you get when you get the AM modulation. And bring it back down. And there you go. That's normal. Triggering. There's a few tricks to getting triggering on AM modulation. Get the trigger up here, and you might get stable triggering if you're lucky. I might have hold off set actually. Triggering. Trigger setup, of course it is. Hold off. There you go, I've got hold off set up there. So I was playing around before, so it's already kind of right. 99% modulation. Yeah, it's fine. It works nice. Okay, good news. I heard back from Rob and he was happy for me to pull this thing apart to do a teardown. So we can open this thing up and have a little look and see what's going on there, especially with the hardware situation there, where the there's it up here. Those terminals are missing, so we can see if it's this case of chucking some BNC flying leads on, because you can actually feel right here, there and there, there's two depressions. I can feel the chassis there. So there's actually a hole in the chassis, it's purely the sticker over the back. Alright, so yeah, upgrade might be possible if it's got most of the hardware in it. Anyway, so this has got Torx screws in there. I have to see which ones they are, and probably on the handle too. I'll probably take that off. We'll see how we go. We'll try and put it apart. Let's get a screwdriver. Okay, you have to excuse the fact that this doesn't look square because my camera's slightly off to one side and looking down very slightly sideways, so it's going to skew the perspective very slightly. So first thing I'll do before I can actually undo these screws is remove the sticker, the warranty sticker. And I'm going to try and do this in a way which doesn't damage it. That's the plan. So I've got a choice. I'm going to either take it off the casing, off the plastic panel. I'm going to go from the plastic panel side. And I've got a razor blade here. I've just got to get the right angle just to get underneath it. We'll see how that goes. I've also got a plastic card here too, in case I need that. Being careful to keep the angle right, otherwise it'll potentially cut through the label. It probably doesn't matter too much. I mean, this is Rob's demo unit anyway. Probably, you know, I don't think he'll really care too much about the seal. I mean, he did say that open it up, it's fine. So we'll see how we go with that. Nice and gentle, just ease through the glue. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a warranty seal. It's not particularly exciting anyway, but there we go. That's that part. So that's the seal off. Now I can take the screws out. And actually I think I might stand on this end and do that. I don't want to accidentally stick that to the bench. So there we go, we'll get your nose. This is a, what size is this? This is a T20 Torx. Security Torx in my case. It's got a hole in it, but it's the same basically thing. I don't know if its feet screw through to the chassis. I think they're just on the casing. They move around a little bit. So I'll take these off. Just stick upside down because otherwise you won't be able to see what I'm doing. And I think I might take the handle off the side as well because it looks like it's probably screwed to the chassis inside. This one bumper. I think that one's out, quite sure. Yeah, it is. Right. With the bumpers. I think it'll slide yet. No, so I think I've got to take the handle off. There's also a screw there too, I should take that out as well. Yeah, it goes through to the chassis. There's one screw up there, which is also another Torx, but it's a smaller one. What size is that? That one? Might be. So that screw there is a T10. Was there one on the other side as well? Yes, there is one over that side as well. So I think now that might slide. Let's give it a go. Yep, sure enough. So that's the other side. Obviously I'm not going to open this up. You know, it's not something I'm going to mess with. So, it's got a battery in there. May watch out for that in future. You know, I don't know, 5 years time, whatever, you might have to replace it. So it's got a lattice FPGA down there. I'm guessing it's an FPGA. Relay down here. It's got a tidy board. So it's also got a PCB here for all these connections, go straight onto it. Serial header right there, 3.3 volt TX RX ground. I think I'll change the lenses on the camera, do you reckon? Get it close up. Turning it around so it's now facing towards me, and we'll start at the back corner. There's all the connections there for the outputs, all marked on the board as well. It's a mystery header here. Potentially another serial port though, I mean it looks very similar to the other one. So that's all fixed on the board there. Just close up of that stuff. So you can see power supply sections obviously around here. I'm quite sure what this stuff is. It looks like a regulator just there. These, I'm not sure. I don't know. But probably all power supply, I mean, based on the capacitors being around here. Obviously you've got a beeper there. Not that exciting that side. And also the RF is generated in here. So I'm not going to open this up. That's staying as it is. Now the fans on this are fairly noisy. You know, the bearable. I certainly heard a lot noisier than that on other equipment, but to me they're a bit noisier than I'd like. I mean, there's no rubber mountings, it's all just straight onto the chassis and that sort of stuff, so, you know, closer look at that. It's all just bolted straight on. To me that should probably be rubber mounted in order to reduce the noise. You know, it's just, to me the noise is a bit more than it really should be. We could probably change these fans, you know, I mean, let's have a look. What is this thing? Get focus. Yeah. 12 volt. So the fans are in it, at least, 2 of those. Doing manual focusing to try and sort things playing around, and that's all you can see on the top, is that. Wow. Okay. But the interesting thing about this is if you look over here, well, for start there's a connector here which is missing. That may or may not be relevant. But you've got some header pins here, see, here and here. Power connector, looks of it, and some kind of data connector maybe. Options, I mean, you see this whole panel here is completely empty. And look there, what do you see? Isn't that interesting? 7 holes punched in the chassis. What options were they thinking of for this thing? Unless they use the chassis for something else as well, which then has different options, but the fact you've got these 2 header connections here makes you wonder about, hey, is there future expansion options going on there? Something else they haven't done yet. Going to use the same unit and add expansions to it. I mean, we don't know about the IQ stuff, but what else is there potentially that's going to be there? Very interesting. It'd be nice to Siglent actually tell us what they've planned. It's not going to happen though, is it? So let's zoom out a bit. Give you an idea of the whole chassis. Alright, so that's what basically it looks like on the top. There's actually not a lot to see, but the IQ stuff, I expect it's a case of plugging it in. I was hoping to see like some SMA connectors, you know, sticking off the board just with no pigtails on them. That's kind of what I was hoping to see, but it looks like it might require a board here. And it's got these standoffs in here, post standoffs, so you can attach boards. So they're obviously thinking ahead and actually allowing for those different options. You know, I don't know, unless there's a separate board that runs the IQ stuff, which then sends data through here. Entirely possible. It might have a little lead that comes over and plugs in, or it could just be a direct connection. Seeing as there's no posts in this area, I'd say most likely it's going to be a board that comes over here and there's a power lead that runs over and plugs into here. That's my guess. But yeah, look on the back there, it's all just shielded, nothing to see. But are there any clues? I mean, this is a separate board here, that's like almost like a RAM slot. In fact, it looks exactly like a RAM slot. And obviously that's some kind of processing board there. Let's have a close look at this. JTAG connector. It says JTAG. I don't mess with that whole serial communication stuff. I just don't do it. I leave it alone. That's not my area of expertise. Getting into back into firmware and understand what's going on, that's just not what I do. So maybe one day I'll do it. Curiosity gets me, but at the moment it's just, I'd leave those things alone. Leave that up to Dave or other people to do that. So yeah, that SMA connector there is interesting. What's on the other side of that board? Aha! Here's a clue. IQ clock. So yes, there is indeed a connector missing for the IQ system. But that's a standard connector format. You could easily buy one and fit it, as long as the rest of the circuitry is there. So yes, it's not like the IQ option is going to be just like a straight plug-in module and carry on. It does require a little bit of extra effort, but it looks like potentially it can do it. This is called Dragon, apparently. So there's also a little header here which hasn't got anything on it. Let's have a closer look at that. Okay, so TCK, ground, TMS, is that TQM, TDO 3.3 volts, and it's a JTAG, Masters JTAG as well. So, and there's another one over here, another JTAG, same labelling. So, But the main thing we wanted to pull this apart and have a look inside was to try and determine if it's possible to add the IQ stuff quite easily or not. It looks like it uses a subboard, so probably not so easy. But again, it might be something you can add later on, or maybe if you, in 10 years time, you might be able to pick up one of these which is broken, which has got that module in it, and fit it. Possibly, you never know. But yeah, there's an awful lot of space in there, lots of air, lots of free space. Very curious. I mean, it's just the whole fact that there's all these different punch outs on the back there, you know, that is very curious. What options did they have in mind for this thing? Does make me wonder. So one of my curiosities is like from a repair perspective, right? So obviously, as you know, I do lots of fixing of things. So to me, I like to look to the future and think, right, how hard is this thing likely to be to repair in the future? You know, in 10 years time, whatever, when it, you know, finally has problems with a power supply or whatever. It's got a power supply module, which is bolts in, so it's obviously a standalone, not on a main board, which is nice, which means if this plays up, there's a good chance for somebody to be able to fix. It looks like a fairly standard switch mode supply, but we have 6 wires coming out of it. This is currently plugged into power, so what I'm going to do is probe these powers connections here and see what voltages we get with it off and on, and go from there. I just want to like basically make a reference point for anyone who ever has one of these, maybe in the future. You know, this video is going to be around for a long time. It might help someone to know what power supply voltage is supposed to be here. So let's have a look. So it turned off, that's minus 8.75 volts. The black wire is a ground. Yellow is 6.5 volts, near enough, or 6.45. The red is 22.2. This other black looks like another ground. And the white is negative 22 volts. Okay, and that's based off a chassis reference, obviously. If I go between the black wire and just verify that it's the same, 8.77, 6.45 again, yeah, 22.2, and minus 21. And that one there, also the same, so it's got 2 grounds, and obviously the rest of the main rails. So I'll just keep that in the chassis there, nice convenient. Let's turn it on and see if anything changes. I'll actually wait till it's fully booted, then I'll check it again. Because once it's got some loading on it, it might change. Again, I'll start the blue wire and work our way back to the white one. Any second now. There we go, display's on, that'll do. Right, so minus 7.4 volts. Okay, 7.5 here I suppose. Ground is definitely still ground. Yellow is 6.4. Red 17.7. We have a difference there, isn't there? And white minus 21. So there's some huge differences there. That's with the RF turned off. I'll turn the RF and modulation on, and we'll turn the low frequency generator on as well. So that's everything enabled. Do the same thing again. I'm going to skip the earth wires this time, obviously. 6.4, 17.7, 20.9. I find that quite interesting. Those voltages are changing by that much, actually. That's curious. So it didn't seem to matter having everything on and off. It didn't seem to affect it at all. If I change the level, maybe that will do something. Let's just do 13 dBm. RF is on, 2 GHz, let's go, frequency, 10 MHz, there you go, 10 MHz, 13 dBm outputs, just check it again for the blue, just in case anything's different. 6.4, 7.7, base 21, so no difference. So it is interesting the way those rails are very different from each other. I expected the positive and negative rails to be pretty well matched, but I guess it's relying on local regulation of the boards as well. I should have a little probe around on the board as well and look at local regulation points just to verify some stuff. So it's just to document what's going on there. So that's got a 3.3 volt rail I can see on there, marked as 3.3. There's a 1 volt, 1.8 volt, 1.5 volt. That's marked on those inductors just there. So it's also got local power supplies running right off that chip there, which is a TPS 65400. So there's obviously some kind of logic going there anyway. Let's have a look on this side. And there's another header pin over here too, which also missed. That's VCC unmarked D minus D plus, just down there. You can see that in there if I can get the angle right. See that? Just see it next to that cable there, that ribbon. So lots of little header pins on here, which is quite interesting. I'm guessing it's like the test jig system and stuff like that, programming and test jigs. Yes. So I'm not going to pull it apart completely, obviously. I'll just having a bit of a poke around, a little look inside. So that's 3.3 volt rails over here. VL positive, VL negative, VH negative, VH positive. Just have a poke around on these to see what voltages get. There's a VCC minus 15 volt rail, VCC plus 15 volt rail, VCC 12 volt rail. There's actually little test point marks there, little gold pads. So those are little test points that are marked on the board. There's a green light down here. So this actually looks like it's going to be fairly easy to check voltages and stuff on, if you know, in the future, if you ever need to work on this thing, because it looks like most of the rails are marked. And there's a VCC 3.9 volt there. I do like the fact they've marked a lot of stuff on the board. That is really nice. You don't get a lot of that these days. So to see that they've actually put it on the board, so if you've got a problem you can maybe diagnose it, that's pretty cool. I really like that. That's good. There we go. I'm going to see it a bit better yourself now too. Okay, so there's those various voltage points around here, which you can probably see on the board, and over here. So that's very nice. There's not a huge amount to say about it really. It's all just discrete stuff. I mean, well, discrete. It's all integrated into the chip. So you know, it's incredible what I can do these days with just a bit of technology like it. Compared to what things used to be like, you know, it'd be multiple boards inside a unit, you know, half a dozen boards to try and do one little feature. That relay there is probably switching to 10 MHz. Let's have a close look. So plug the power. So that earth bolt post on the back is just goes straight to the chassis. There's no wire on it, but I mean the chassis is going to be earthed anyway. I don't really see that being a problem. Can we see what this relay here is doing? So where's the 10 MHz? They're over here. So I can't see traces through the board. There are internal traces on the board, so I can't actually trace it out. So maybe I can't do that. But look at that! What do you see down there? Apart from nothing, because I've got it out of focus. There we go. Look at that. There's two ports there on the side of that casing. Do you think those could be the IQ? Because that's kind of what I was expecting to find, is a couple of empty ports. Just a couple of push-in. There's a name for them. I can't think what the name is right now off the top of my head. Very curious. I do wonder if it's a case of plugging cables in. So if someone actually has one of these which has got the IQ version, it would be nice to see if these are what's connected to the back panel. Because if it is, it may be modifiable. Right, so maybe it's because that's where those connections are, just down there. It can come through the panel here and go to there, because that's where they're mounted, is over here. Or maybe it comes through and goes to this board. Maybe it's like maybe this is like a mixer board or something which does some sub-processing. Entirely possible. But we need to see inside the IQ model. So if someone's got an IQ model and want to give us the photos or even do a video themselves of pulling it apart, that'd be great. Because it'd be nice to actually get that complexity of how those two things come together. Get a complete picture. I think we'll put it back together. And there we go, back together. And all still working. Always good. Well, I didn't exactly put it apart by much, did I? Just taking the casing off, shouldn't do anything. Anyway, so make sure you share this video if you want people to see what the inside of this thing looks like. So make sure you subscribe, click on the bell icon to get notifications, and the thing to click on and create a post as well. and give us a thumbs up if you liked it. If you didn't like it, give us a thumbs down, but tell us why. I want to, want to find out why if people don't like things. And make sure you tell your friends about it and share the video to people which might be interested in this particular unit. It's a nice bit of kit. I don't know what I'm looking for here. I don't know what I'm doing though, so it's not surprising. Radians, degrees. No idea. Absolutely no idea. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I keep doing that. Wrong one.